Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy CB, aka the Rude Educator, coming at you with another brief WETF review of the Wu-Tang and American Saga series. We already did a review for episode 1 of season 2, so we're right back at you for another spoiler review. This time we're going to do episodes 2 and 3 because all 3 episodes came out at the same time anyway, and we want to go ahead and get caught up for episode 4 coming out this week. The second episode pretty much starts off where the last one ended, with Bobby getting off on all the attempted murder charges that he was on trial for. They're back at his mom's house toasting champagne. Everybody's happy. He gets a call from his brother Divine and ODB and his cousin Gary, all on the line together. So the one big happy family reunited, and it's a good feeling. Divine just finished. He's finishing up work release, so everybody's feeling good about the Diggs family right now, and it's a real good feeling. I think one of the things that Divine says early on in the episode is the God is free, and that's kind of the feeling that you have through the first part of the episode. He's free. He got a new lease on life, and everything's gonna be good. His mom shows him to Bobby's mom goes down in the basement and shows him how she cleaned up his room a little bit. He got things a little bit more organized, because she told him that his life is his space reflects his life, and the space is usually in chaos, and she wanted to kind of give him a new beginning. So right there is already showing you that as philosophical as RZA is, it had to come from somewhere, and this is showing that a lot of that is coming from his mom. They even had a couple of moments in this episode where they were discussing, things like they were discussing music, and the mom found his mom's name is Linda, by the way. His mom finds this OJ's record in his crate, and she asked him, well, first of all, it's her record. He stole it, and that's what we do as kids, is we find those old records our parents had, and we start playing with them. He goes even deeper into the record, talking about the percussion on the family reunion cut on the record, and then he goes even further and talks about how Eddie LaVerse got a son named Gerald, and how they did a song together on the B-side of one of his songs. And so that was just a good moment for me to see that connection between Bobby and his mom. The second discussion that they had was about kung fu flicks that Bobby had the family watching. And so again, this is just solidifying the fact that even as much of a philosopher as RZA ends up being, a lot of that influence did come from his mother. Bobby is thinking about going back to New York to get the music thing off the ground, and he's encouraging Dennis to come with him. Dennis not really with it, so there's a little bit, I don't say conflict, but it's a little bit of maybe they're not going in the same direction. What's going on in New York? What's going back on Staten Island? And one of the first scenes they show is the fellas, they got Shotgun and Gary, and I think A-Sign is there too. They all in the hallway. You got cats shooting dice. They in there selling, they selling they work or whatever. And then Shotgun and Gary, they going back and forth about superheroes. They talking about, if Spider-Man could be Batman, and the dynamics of that conversation. Anybody that likes comic books knows that's one of those typical conversations, because you got all these superheroes. Who's the best? And that's just what comic book nerds do. We just talk about different aspects, and then Shotgun even goes as far as say, I don't even like DC, period. So that kind of sets the tone of what we're dealing with out here. just regular hood guys doing hood things, and that's why I like this show is because it doesn't just talk about the music; it talks about the life, and that's one of the things that those of us that are Wu-Tang fans that makes us fans is because you know they showed how you may be living a pretty rough life, but at the same time you still a regular type person. So that's always the jewel to catch with Wu Tang. And so it goes on. It goes on where they out in the hallways, and so you got your boy Shotgun, who of course becomes Method Man, and they even call him Method Man for the first time in this episode because he rolling up smoking, and somebody says like, "Yeah, you really are the Method Man." And then they later on they show how he's spitting his verse from the song Method Man for Rebel, who of course becomes Inspector Deck. And of course, Rebel is loving the rhyme. We are loving the rhyme. He spits it pretty much the same way that we remember it on the song. Shout out to Dave East, who plays the part of Shotgun, aka Method Man. He's doing a really good job of doing that, and just one of those moments. And then later on, we saw Shotgun meeting up with You God, and they started talking about. Now this is just one of the things I go into detail about when he's talking about this particular method of torture, where there's a chair that is shaped like a pyramid. If you could just imagine that. A chair shaped like a pyramid with a point at the top, okay? And then they have someone sit on that. Okay, so that's as far as I'm gonna go because if you can just imagine that, it's torture, motherfucker. Anyway, yeah, everybody loves saying that, torture, motherfucker. But anyway, that was the scene where You got and Method Man in the car, doing the drug trade thing, but talking about bigger things. And so then we got another scene where you got Jizza, aka Gary, and his boy Jamel. They out selling the bootleg kung fu flicks that we learned early on that Gary is getting from Divine's girl because she's a manager at the video store. So they out there selling these tapes, and they also building on what's called the lessons of the 5%. And this is a very important part of the Wu-Tang story because most of, if not all, the Wu-Tang members were 5%ers. And this is the philosophy that they follow. And so a lot of the rhymes, a lot of the things you hear on the records, it's got that influence to it. So that's the reason why they're going into this and showing where that influence came from. And, Jamel, of course, ends up being Master Killer. They haven't even gotten into that yet. I like the way how they sometimes just introduce a character, not really explaining who they are, how they fit, and then that part comes along later. And so that's kind of what they're doing here with Jamel. It's just him and Gary out selling tapes, building on the lessons. And then they even have some Hebrew Israelites come up and set up camp right across from them. And that builds even more tension and more conflict in the story. It's real good to see that because that's a real New York City type thing, especially back in those days. You had the Hebrew Israelites doing their thing on the corner, and then, of course, you had the 5%ers doing their thing, and sometimes they didn't always get along. Even though they had the same goals, their approach is different. So that's where the conflict comes from. And then my man A-Sign dealing with a deal, man, in this episode, because they show him with his girl, he having a good time. And inevitably, whenever you got yourself a good girl, it's always some competition. And she got a baby daddy. And when the baby daddy comes drop their son off, and they see A-Sign chilling in there with it, with his girl, it's a problem. To the point where when A-Sign leaves, him and the squad, they buck up on him, beat him down, whatever. and tell him not to come back or he's gonna get more of the same. And so he a little messed up about it. He go talk to his cousin Gary about it. And and Gary, like I said, he the philosopher at this point, and he tells him like, "Hey, you need to come to him as a man, and he'll respect it." So that's what A-Side does. He goes back, talks to him like, "Hey, I want to talk to you, like man to man on this." Dude ain't having it. He just he just punch him in his face, once again, and it's mad disrespectful, if you ask me. And I ain't like that. I ain't like the fact that he was being that disrespectful, even though he came to him, in a respectful manner. So, to me, there was no more options at that point. But when he goes back, because he comes back, he comes back around Gary. Of course, like I said, they selling the kung fu flicks, and so he catches a glimpse of one. And it's talking about how powerful the arts are. And so he goes back to his girl's crib, and they chilling outside. He talking that yang, and her baby daddy and his crew roll up again. This time, he's not nervous. A-Sign is very calm about it, and they brought up on him, and they got a shotgun this time. And the move that A-Side makes to disarm this man of his shotgun is right out of a kung fu flick, okay? And he does it so quickly and so effortlessly. And then that's where the one-man army A-Side comes from. I mean, again, we know this is dramatic, but it makes for good television just to watch this and see it. It was real funny seeing that. So A-Side got his thing going on. He got his thing handled finally. And it was all good. We get into Rebel story a little bit, because Rebel, he's doing his thing with the Hustle Gang, but he also got his round thing going. When Shotgun told him that he was gonna be Method Man now, he's like, "Yeah, I need to give me a name." He goes over to the wall and tags Inspector, and Method Man's like, "Yeah, he liked it." And so now that's his name he's going by. They show him in the project building, writing on the walls. Some undercover police run up on him, want him to empty his pockets. They go in his pockets, they find the drugs, so now Rebel's in jail. And it's always good to see how they show these things happening, because here it is, just once again, out of pretty much, I don't say boredom, but a lack of outlet for your creativity. This is what it leads to. So anyway, they show Rebel in jail, and he getting his rhymes together, the whole nine, and it's just showing how he's coming from that perspective at this point. They show how he wrote some of the lines to Cream. And everything is kind of setting up everybody as to how they become the personalities that they become. All right, and that leads us into Shah's situation, all right, aka Raekwon, because he's one of the guys that's actually going in the studio now. He's going to the studio, recording some records. He got some beats that Bobby left him, and he's trying to make it happen. Even the engineer at the studio was telling him, like, "You paying for all this quality, but you bringing in these consumer tapes and messing it all up. You got to do better." And he don't really care, because he like the beats Bobby made for him, and so he's trying to put it down. And it's really kind of a messed up situation for Shah, because the owner of the studio come in, and he was bogus for this, but he told him he went over his studio time. And he told him that he couldn't get his music until he paid him up. So now the music that he's been working on and so proud of is stuck in the studio due to financial situations. But, he's still kind of lacking in some aspects, because, he used to hustle, but now he's trying to go on the straight and narrow, especially by the encouragement of his mom. He even runs into Power. Power offers him some money to, cook some dope up for him. He tell him that, I can't really do that right now, because I'm trying to live on the straight and narrow. So all these conflicts going on with everybody, whereas they trying to ride the line between not necessarily good or evil, but I'm gonna go down this path, or am I gonna take this other path that's a little more unknown than that I could do this thing that I see everybody in the neighborhood doing, or I could do this other thing that is risky, but the rewards are great. So that's where everybody is right now. And one thing that happens to Shy is he's just in the hallway. He's a little encouraged because he just came from the studio. He met Eric Sermon. The studio owner tells him that he let somebody hear his song, and now they want to work with him. And so he's feeling a little encouraged. He's feeling very encouraged about with the way that his dealings with the studio, the way his music is going. And then he's down in the hallway hanging with his guys, and this knucklehead just likes to shoot dice, pulls his gun out, shoots the gun towards the ground, but the bullet ricochets, hits Shy in the leg. You know what I'm saying? Thankfully, I only hit him in the leg and it went straight through. And he's going to be okay. But the fact is, he got shot, on some bullshit. So that didn't sit too well with him. He didn't really like that. Everything's going good and then you get shot. It always puts a damper on your day. But, that it happened. Shotgun was there to help take care of him. So it looks like he's going to make it through that. And then everything else that happens just got to do with the music. They show Bobby back in Ohio. He's making beats. He's telling this girl about what it is that he's trying to do, how he's trying to go back to New York and really make it happen. And the music. So in the first episode at the party, they was giving the DJ a hard time, but he was playing, No Vaseline when the fight broke out. I think that was on purpose, obviously. But then in this episode, one of the songs that gets played is "Steady Mobbing" by Ice Cube. So I think they really showing how there was definitely a influence from the West Coast to what they were doing, because the other song that they played was "Deep Cover" by Dre and Snoop. So it's showing how first of all, the West Coast was the dominant, that was the dominant music at the time. And then also how that West Coast domination can still influence people that was from the other coast. So that was meaningful to me so far as showing that influence. And then Bobby is still at it. He decides he's going to go back to New York City and make the thing happen. And at the end of the episode, they show his mom telling him goodbye. Eric Alexander just kind of standing there crying. And that's pretty much the end of the Ohio chapter. And that's the end of Eric Alexander's part as a regular character on the show. So there's a couple of tears being shed. So to me, that the second episode really showed how things were going and how they weren't going all that great for anybody at the time, but there's hope on the horizon for everybody. And that's how we're going to get into episode 3, is because again, they're doing a good job of just backing up the next episode to what happened in the last episode. So episode 3 starts off with Bobby arriving in New York, and he gets there, Shaolin, and it's a big mural on the wall, fence, or whatever, and it's got Stapleton and big block letters, and then somebody wrote over a Killer Hill tag, and then it's got the big greenery of the whole place, and then it looks like they have some type of pagoda at the top. Okay, so all of that is symbolic, of course, of how you got the two rivaling, the rivalry between the two public housing complexes, and how that's a real thing on the island of Staten. And it looks like Bobby, is looking at it and seeing, okay, this is the situation. and trying to figure out a way to deal with it. And so after the opening credits, they cut to Divine. Of course, Divine got the job working at the construction site, and so now he's putting in that work, that construction work, and he's just reading like one of the safety warnings and looking at the language of it and saying like, man, does anybody ever read this shit? Because if they did, they might not, not like what's going on if they really knew what was happening. So he's looking at that, and then he sits and talks to one of his coworkers who's apparently a DJ and an artist. I'm assuming that this is representing Mathematics, who pretty much always been around with the Clan, a DJ. He's the one that invented or created the Wu-Tang logo. And so I think they're just trying to show how he comes into the picture. Him and Divine are talking about they're talking about Gangstar, Dwick, the joint with Nice and Smooth by Gangstar. And, it's just showing the hip hop background they both have. And then they show him drawing, and they even point out the fact that he's a hell of an artist. And it just shows a good link. And then there's also the issue with one of the construction workers being a little careless. Divine's trying to tell him, to be careful, but he's not trying to hear that. So that sets up some stuff in, later on in the episode. And then they go show Divine at home. He coming home to his girl. Everything is good. She got telling him that she got dinner coming. And then they go around the corner and Bobby sleep on the couch. So I guess that's the first stop that he made, was to his brother's spot. He got his thing set up, his beat thing set up, and Divine, sees his Walkman. He plays what's in the Walkman, and he's grooving to it. It's one of Bobby's beats. He's grooving to the beat, and then Bobby wakes up, catches him, and asks him what he thinks, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm digging it." They go back and forth about that, and and Bobby is trying to tell him like, "Hey, I want you to be a part of this," and Divine's not really feeling it at the moment because, of course, he's got responsibilities, and at this point, the music business seems like a pipe dream to everybody. So it's not the kumbaya moment you might expect, because when you're dealing with real life, sometimes somebody coming to you with what seems like a dream doesn't seem feasible at the time. So it's really interesting how Bobby, because he did the same thing with his boy D. He's like, "Yeah, you should go to New York with me," and D wasn't really feeling it. So, and once again, here's Bobby trying to come to somebody he's close with and say, "Hey, let's do this music thing." And due to the real life stuff that they got going on, they're not really feeling doing it. And so they show Divine again dealing with the lawsuit, because what happens is the guy that was not being so careful at work ends up hurting himself and files a lawsuit against the construction company that they all work for. And now Divine's reading up on workman's contracts and how that all works. And he's getting into the language of that and how it's real confusing, and it's probably set up that way to keep people from knowing the truth. And that's true. That's how things are set up. The reason that literacy is such an important thing is because people will try to hide things right in front of you just by using language that you're unfamiliar with. So it's always important to educate yourself as much as possible. And so, they show Divine doing that, and then they show him going to threaten the guy that's bringing the lawsuit, because he finds out that the lawsuit is probably some bullshit. And after he threatens the guy says he's going to drop the suit, but of course he doesn't. Goes back to work, finds out he doesn't have a job anymore because the guy has to shut down the operation due to the lawsuit. So, being discouraged by that, he goes back home. Bobby says he got a new spot, and that he's making his way to the spot, but he's gonna leave his stuff behind for a few days till he gets it all set up. And one of the things he leaves behind is a book about the music business. And so Divine picks up the book and starts getting into that instead of workman contracts. And that's kind of showing how Divine, ends up being the business guy of the clan because he had a chance to get into that language. And then next thing they do is they show Shy. He's talking with his mom, and she offers him money, and he doesn't really want to take it, but she also tells him that he needs to stay off that leg that he just got shot, but he's got moves to make, so he's trying to make these moves, get in the studio with this producer and make it in the music business. And he goes out. He's out talking to Gary at the marketplace. They're talking about how he changed his name to Raekwon. Gary tells him it's a good name. And then they talk about Bobby and how Bobby's back in town. He need to link with Bobby, get the music thing going. He said he's on the way to the studio now. And so he gets to the studio. He's talking to the producer. The producer's like, yeah, let me hear what you got. He spits it for him. He's like, yeah, I got something for that. And he plays the beat. The beat is cool, but, Shy not really feeling it. He's like, he don't really fit with what he's trying to do. But the producer said, do it anyway. And he drops it, and it's cool. By the time he finishes, Bobby comes through the studio, and, now he really want to know what Bobby thinks about it. And Bobby kind of hesitant at first, but he tells him, like, it don't really fit, what you're doing. And that's when Bobby hit him with the beat that he's been working on. He give him the disc. And Shy tell him, like, hey, man, I changed my name. I go by Raekwon now. And so they just show him scratching off the Shy and putting the R-A-E on it. And I'm pretty sure that's symbolic. If you look through some old Wu-Tang images, it's probably like an image of a disc with that on there. And so they just showed that moment. And it kind of shows where Bobby's at, because he drops the tape off, but Shy's doing his own thing, and he kind of like, okay, that's cool, but here's this, I'm gonna keep it moving. You let me know what you think, okay? So Bobby not really putting no pressure on nobody. He just like, this is what I'm trying to do. You down or not? And so I think that's a good approach to have, because dealing with people, you don't want to make them feel like you making them do something or you telling them to do something. You want to make them feel like it's their own decision. And I think that's the best way he could do that, is just by giving them the tracks and let them peep it for themselves. If they feeling it, then they follow suit. If they not, then they do that thing. So I think he's having the right approach to this situation. The next story that they share. So this whole episode is basically showing each individual that they focus on. They narrate their own segment, and they show it's like almost like a day in the life of. The scene with Power comes up, and Power's out at the marketplace where Jizzin and Jamel be at. But he's looking at these purses, and he's talking to one of the guys about these purses. He's wanting to get the purse maybe for his girl or whatever, mom. And they haggling over the price. And the narration is, is Power talking about how to hustle people and how to, he's telling them like, yeah, see, I just talked him down, and now I'm buying it for this price, even though he offered it at this price. So what's it really worth? And, he's kind of bragging on his hustling skills in that manner, his negotiation skills. And in the meantime, they showing that his Land Cruiser getting towed over there, where he parked it at. Apparently he parked it illegal. So he tries to run the tow truck driver down so his truck doesn't get towed. The tow truck driver not really feeling it, so the best he could do was get him to impound it in Staten Island. And he gave him a couple $100 to do that. So he takes the truck. And then Power goes and jumps on the bus. And when he jumps on the bus, he recognizes the bus driver as somebody he used to hustle with. And it kind of takes him by surprise because the way he figured, the guy had enough money to, just retire from the game. And it doesn't make sense to him that he's driving the bus. So they talk, and the guy's name is Mook, a.k.a. John. He just tells him, like, look, I'm better off riding this bus or driving this bus than I would have been staying in the hustle game. The hustle I would have ended up dead or in jail. Right now, I got medical, dental, life insurance, the whole nine. I'm actually doing pretty good. And then so he said, man, but you should have had, Powell is still not processing it because he's like, man, you should have had like $3 million. And he's like, okay, let's say I did. I'm going to live for another 40-something odd years. That's not going to be enough. That's only going to be, a few $1,000s a year. And Powell's still not feeling him. And he's kind of like, telling him all this other stuff he could have done. He's like, nah, I got responsibilities I got to take care of. I got people depending on me. So I'm gonna be on this bus. And so it was one of those moments where it was like, in the kung fu movies, it's kind of like the moment when the warrior goes and sees the guru. It was one of those moments because you can see Power processing what he's telling him. Like, man, I thought that the hustle life would sustain me, but now I'm seeing that it's not. And it's even a part where woman gets on the bus, she got one of the same purses he was negotiating with about before. And he just tells a nice purse. She thinks he's trying to steal her purse, but we all know that there's another meaning behind that. And then he runs into Bobby. Bobby gets on the bus. They talk about his trial, how he got off, and Powell tells her, like, man, you need to stick to the music. So the beef that they got going on wasn't really the discussion. It was more like, hey, you did good getting off on that murder rap or whatever they had you on. So maybe you need to just stick doing, something positive. And then he gets off the bus, and then he runs into somebody else selling those same purses once again, and he kind of laughs to himself because it's showing like, okay, all these different people doing the same hustle, and they really getting nowhere. And so he kind of looks at the hustle that he's doing in the same kind of way, like, damn, this man that made millions off the game just told me that I'm probably better off driving a bus than continue to hustle. So that's what I got out of the segment with Power because, he's a hardcore hustler, but he's running into somebody that's telling him that maybe that ain't the way. And then so they go into D Lover. D Lover's back in Ohio. He's taking care of the baby with Cherie. And Cherie is telling them now, like, okay, yeah, it's time for you to go. And the reason being is you got dreams you need to take care of, and those dreams can take care of us. And he's not really feeling that at first, but she telling him, like, look, you the best. You one of the best rhymers. You can do this shit. You gotta just be encouraged. Like, she telling him, like, Bobby didn't do it right the first time, but he's still trying to do it again. You need to be with Bobby. And so they talk about it. They talk about the future. They talk about how she's going to stay in Ohio. He's going to go to New York. He ends up back on Staten at his mom's crib. His brother's there chilling. You know what I'm saying? They telling him they proud to be uncles. They telling him their moms, she getting back on track. So that's all good. He spit some bars for his brother, and they out hanging in the hood, and they telling him, like, yo, that D Lover name, that gotta go. You need something new. And so that's the origin of that. And then, his one brother tell him, I keep my ears to the street because they see Power's whip get towed. He's like, oh, that's Power whip. And then he even in on the beef, talk about, you know what I'm saying, fuck them niggas. And I love these brothers. Even though the one brother don't never say nothing, but he obviously be communicating some kind of way with them. And it just show again, once again, that's just part of hood life. Like you got people that's out there, disabled or whatever, but they still, your people. So it ain't like you treat them any different, anything like that. They might be in a wheelchair, they might, have something going on, but they still your people. And that's real shit. And then so they go back to Bobby. He meet up with ODB at the new spot. ODB got a lot of his old shit from the house. So they in the spot setting up, stealing power out the phone booth or whatever. And then Jizza comes in. They talking about the story that happened at, the conflict that happened with the Hebrew Israelites at the marketplace. And then Bobby turned the beat on. Gary feeling the beat. He want the beat, but Bobby like, nah, this beat ain't for you. Now I got a plan. He telling him about, how he got a plan, how they gonna go in and do this whole thing. And so that's how it end. It end with, revealing the plan. Bobby revealed his name was the RZA, and they're gonna go on and do great things. So these first 3 episodes, including episode 1 down to episode 3, is like a big setup. And so they're gonna now get into probably some of the more of the mechanics of how they all come together. You got to keep watching because this origin story is one of the best. This origin story is about unity. It's about coming together for one common cause. It's about people coming up from nothing. It's got all those elements to it. So please keep watching. Come back, comment, subscribe, like these videos. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you thought about these first 3 episodes. Is it good? Is it garbage? Let me know. My name is CB. I'm the Rude Educator. This has been WETF. Holler at you later. Peace.